This book is Murata's brilliant creation of satire that amusingly observes society's dark underbelly while bitterly yelling at its destruction and its wrongdoing to humanity. Popping Popopia, Popping Popopia, Popping Popopia. Hi folks! So before we start, I just have an announcement to make. I'm on Patreon now. If you've been watching my videos for a while, I highly encourage you to support me by joining my Patreon. This will make sure that I can continue creating videos you like as a small-time YouTuber. Plus, you're gonna have this additional way to connect with me and explore more content that I will only upload on Patreon, like my field notes while I was doing research for my upcoming videos, stuff like that. You are even gonna have early access to all my videos. Yes, early access to all of them, which means you can watch them 24 hours before I announce. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you on my Patreon. It will mean the world to me, and the link will be in the description box below. And now let's get back to the main video. Bye bye. Welcome back to my channel, my friends. I'm your host, Joy Woo. In today's video, we're going to talk about a very special book, Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. Earthlings was first published in 2018. The English edition came out in 2020. Before this book, many readers had already read another English version of Murata's work, Convenience Store Woman. I haven't read this book, but I just got a copy and will start reading it. I will do another book review after I finish this book. But for now, we will just talk about Earthlings. So Earthlings is the second book by Murata that have been translated into English. I do want to inform all my audience that this is not a book for everyone. Prior to making this video, I reread this book and started categorizing each event happening in this book by the level of its severity. I made a tier list. So tier 3 is for events that are peculiar but somehow acceptable. Tier 2 is for events that are less horrifying but still unbearable. And Tier 1 is for events that are traumatizing. I had so much fun doing this. As you can see, there are so many Tier 1 events in this book. In the red labels, many touchy subjects or taboos are being explored by Murata in this book. If you felt uncomfortable with hearing topics like incest, pedophilia, and murder, this might not be the right content for you. I'm just gonna give you a second to click out. Yeah. Well, I assume you chose to stay here with me. Thank you. I promise it's gonna be worth your time. Without further ado, I'm going to briefly talk about the plot of this fiction. Please forgive me if I'm pronouncing any of the names. I'm trying my best to pronounce them correctly. We have this female protagonist named Natsuki, and the story was told from her perspective as a first-person narrative. The story began when she was 11 years old and in year 5 of elementary school. From the very start, Natsuki felt emotionally disconnected from her family. She has an older sister named Cassie, who is 2 years older than her. It will become more evident as the story goes on that Natsuki lives in a dysfunctional family because her parents favor and spoil Cassie over Natsuki. They would care about how Cassie feels and respect her opinions. Whereas whenever Natsuki tries to talk to her mom of something of importance, her mom would always dismiss her feelings and ridicule her with something like, "I can't believe you're making this out. You've got some nerve." Or, "What a horrible child. You should be using your time to study, not thinking about things like that." There is an obvious pattern here. Natsuki's mom likes to gaslight her, like a lot. So when terrifying things happen to Natsuki, she completely lacks the safety net she deserves as a minor. From Natsuki's point of view, we learn from the very start that she's created this alternative reality which she imagines herself to be an actual magician associated with this planet called Popopia. She has a white hedgehog plush toy named Piet, who happens to be on the cover of this book. And Natsuki says Piet has been sent over by the magic police from Popopia, and Piet has given her a transformation mirror and a magic wand. It turns out that Natsuki wasn't the only one who lived in this imaginary world. Natsuki has a cousin named Yu, who also had this fantasy that he's an alien. Not only did they hang out a lot in the summer when their family members gathered for the Obon festival, but they also formed a relationship. Every summer, Natsuki looks forward to visiting her grandparents who live somewhere deep in the mountains of Akishina, because it's the only time Natsuki gets to hang out with her boyfriend Cousin Yu. So this is the basic setting of the story, and from this point forward, there were horrible things happened, which I'm not going to spoil you the fun of reading it yourself. So at the end of this period, Natsuki and Yu split up, or rather were forced to split up. Then the story fast forward to when Natsuki is grown up. Now she's 34 years old, and she's married. However, it's a fake marriage. Natsuki's managed to find a dude named Tomoya online who also had the intention to get into a marriage that didn't exist, just to escape from his parents. Under the cover of their registered marriage is the platonic partnership. They share the same condo but have their separate rooms, and they eat their meals and wash their clothes separately. Tomoya has trouble keeping a job because he often feels uncomfortable at work and keeps changing jobs. When he was fired from his 7th job, out of nowhere, he was like, "Hey, we should go on a trip. Let's go to the house in Akishina that you're always talking about." Coincidentally, Cousin Yu also lives there at the moment. He was just recently laid off and has been living there on unemployment benefit. I think you can already guess what is going to happen next. It's a reunion after 23 years. And I'm just gonna stop here because a lot of things would happen since they met. You're not gonna believe how this book would end. And that is my way of telling you to get a copy and start reading. First, I'm going to address the alternative reality and alter ego created by Natsuki. When we were little, I believe many of us had imaginary friends to hang out with. I personally didn't have such a friend, but what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing wrong with a lonely and bored child making up an imaginary friend to talk to. It's naive and harmless. However, in Natsuki's case, there is something deeper and darker than children's naivety. In real life, Natsuki couldn't get any help, neither from her family nor from her friend at school. There were multiple times throughout the story that Natsuki either tried to talk to her mom about what happened to her or ask her friend if what happened was weird. But her mom just kept gaslighting her and her friend didn't take her seriously. Natsuki needed a way to escape reality, to cope with traumatic event, and to get through these difficult times. So she created this alternative reality and alter ego as a defense mechanism that shielded her from all those horrors. I find this heartbreaking. To anyone who's not familiar with the Asian culture, I want to further explain the typical Asian parenting that Murata seems to be criticizing in this book. Natsuki's parents don't really care about her well-being. All they really care about is if Natsuki gets good grades at school, and I think her dad doesn't even talk to her. This kind of neglectful parenting style can be common in Asia. Just like any other types of parenting styles, it has its pros and cons. Murata specifically criticizes that being detached from a child's daily life could have extremely negative impact on this child's mental health. Next, I want to go over an important, if not the most important, theme that Murata has explored in this book, which is non-conformity. Ever since Natsuki was young, she knew she wasn't part of the society that everybody else belongs to. She describes society as a factory that produces babies and humans as tools for reproduction. Natsuki realizes there's a fundamental difference between other humans and her, but she has always wanted to be brainwashed into living an ordinary life. Throughout the story, she stated her wish to be brainwashed and to give birth to a child. And here I quote, "Life as a popping popopian was lonely. I just hoped the Earthlings would succeed in brainwashing me. And my womb and my husband's testes did not belong to us. The sooner I was brainwashed, the better. That way I would no longer suffer. I, too, would be able to live with a smile on my face in the virtual reality world in which everyone was living." Through Natsuki's perspective, Murata points out that life can be tough for people who don't fit in and who are part of the marginalized community. Even though Natsuki has always had a desire to fit in, every time a traumatic event happens, she would respond with some outrageous action that put her further away from being identified as a human. And just when the story comes to an end, Natsuki, her husband Tomoya, and her cousin Yu are about to commit something that no human would ever dare to experience. Natsuki realizes committing such an act would expel them from the human world and they would be forever frowned upon and despised by the society. Quote, "In the back of my mind was the thought that if we did this, we would lose any chance of ever being accepted into the Earthling fold again." Through Natsuki, Murata successfully delivers the message that while most humans are programmed to follow the instructions of the society and produce as many babies as possible, marginalized people, on the other hand, are bound to become something less than human. This book is Murata's brilliant creation of satire that amusingly observes society's dark underbelly while bitterly yelling at its destruction and its wrongdoing to humanity. Stability and security have always been ingrained within the Asian society. It's always encouraged for young people to get a stable job and start a family so that they can settle down early on. Murata, however, has her own opinion on this matter. In an interview she did with the Louisiana channel, she says she has met many young women, especially college girls, who don't really know what they want to do with their life and decide to marry a provider man for the sake of security. As she comments, "I find it very heartbreaking. I do wish that these women would be able to follow their dreams." I think through Earthlings, Murata encourages young people to think about what they really want from life. Is it a secure job? Is it a happy marriage? Or is it something shockingly unconventional, like traveling around the world without ever settling down? Murata tries to inspire her readers that despite being pressured by the society, they really shouldn't be discouraged from pursuing things they're passionate about. You probably shouldn't rebel against the society by doing anything horrendous like the characters in this book did. But the key message you should take away from this book is to think about what you really want to do to live life for you. What does living life for you look like? That's a question only you can answer. Murata also examines the idea of sensibility in this book. What does being sensible mean? Most of us would rely on common sense to make our daily decisions, like we need to wear proper clothes around the house instead of being naked. Murata, however, challenges this idea of sensibility. Popping popopians have a very different sense of reality compared to Earthlings, and rationality to them is doing what seems to be rational to survive. Towards the end of the story, Natsuki would create her own value system as a popping popopian, and it's going to shake your worldview. Honestly, it's difficult for me to talk about this book without actually talking about what happened in this book. But I'd rather live it like this so that you can explore this book yourself. Even if you're not so sure about picking it up, I'd say you can still give it a try. It can open your eyes to a whole new perspective that's really different than yours. To wrap up this video, I'd like to thank Murata for talking about taboos in a way that's creative, open-minded, and free of judgment. Through Earthlings, Murata has managed to convey a powerful message that beyond labels, stereotypes, and assumptions, there is a valley of authenticity and openness. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to check my Patreon so that you can become a guest of the Wu Mansion. And I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.